And now, weighing in out of the blue corner, Josh the Punk Thompson. 100%. And on the other mic, he weighs in from the red corner, Big John McCarthy.
All right, well, welcome to the Weighing In Podcast. We've got all kinds of things happening. We got tornadoes going on. We got dust storms. We got giant thunderstorms. And we don't care because we had fights, and we're going to talk about those. My man Josh is sitting there trying to dust off his entire house, dusting off his car from dust storms. I got thunderstorms and tornadoes coming through here. Doesn't scare me at all.
What about your animals, man? How do they act when the tornado's whipping through?
Dude, animals go to trees. It's weird. If you got trees around, they're going to go to the trees and they're going to hunker down. They just, this is where I'm going to be.
Interesting.
Let's see you take this stuff out. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Goats run in circles. Goats go, oh, dude, they just start running the perimeter wherever they're at.
You see them hopping around, bouncing around.
Oh, dude, they're crazy. Dude, they're athletic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're super athletic.
Oh,
Pigs could give a shit. They just look and they go, is there food there? No? Okay. Don't care.
Pig's like, go ahead, try to lift my fat ass up.
Ain't going nowhere.
Right?
Low to the ground and heavy and strong, man.
Fucking Keto George is fucking laughing up. Ginger George is what we're going to start calling you, Ginger George. Are you wearing a Chicago Bears fucking shirt?
He is.
My home. It's my home.
I'm not saying it's not your homes, but man, you guys got to make some changes this year.
Hey,
You're going to have to make something happen. You guys got a good coach, though. A new one.
just keep thinking about the 84 season. Come on, Walter Payton. Come on.
84 season.
85 was the year you guys did well.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I wasn't alive.
It was the 85 season. 86 Super Bowl.
My dad was graduating high school.
Come on, bro.
Wow. Damn.
Jeez. True fan. I love it. All right, look, let's go ahead and get into the fights. But before we get moving, man, this show is brought to you by BetUSTV.com, BetUSTV.com. So check them out, man. Go there for more betting odds and go there for your sports content.
Sports content.
Sports content.
There you go.
All right. Make a note of that, buddy. Make a note of that one. All right. But hey, look, we're having we're doing some good things over there, and check them all out, man. John, let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's jump right into the fights, man. The fights were I want to ask you this. Do you notice that obviously the weekend after the fight or the weekend after pay-per-views, we have these fights? Why do you think that they put cards on like this? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so what I mean is,
that's fine.
So what I mean is, there are normally heavily, when fights are not matched well, it's like normally like there's a heavy favorite, in these matchups.
Yes.
As you get obviously the main event is normally try to make it a legit fight. Co-main event, you try to make it as close as possible. When you get down the card, though, there's a lot of mismatches.
Yeah,
or at least on paper, they're mismatches. We had some upsets tonight,
True.
but yeah, on paper there was some mismatches. Why do you think that they do that always the weekend after the fight, after a pay-per-view?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. First off, they have so many fighters on their roster that they've got to have these shows so that each fighter is at least offered 3 fights a year. That's what's on their contract. And when they have these big pay-per-views, those are the ones that are expensive. They're the ones that have the fighters that make actually a lot of money. And so then the next card is usually not going to have any real big names, as far as comparatively, meaning nothing throughout the preliminaries is going to have a name that most people are really, wanting to see and excited about. It's going to be people they want you to start learning about. It may have 1 or 2. And then the main card is going to have people that you've seen, but they've never been, the ones that are headlining a card or anything, except for that final fight. They'll have people that have fought for titles or done things. They're always going to put that final main event fight as one that it's a good fight with really good fighters. And that's always been their way of doing it, because they have to back off from the big show and they have to have these fighters get their fights in. And this is a cheap show for them. They have to have it for ESPN. That's part of their contract. And so, they put these together. they normally end up having some really good fights on them, and they had some really good fights on this one, and they have a lot of finishes. And you're right, it's the ones where if you're going to look at the betting odds on them, yeah, there's usually someone who's a heavy favorite to win the fight. And so people can sit there, well, you know who's going to win. Yeah, you can sit there and say that, but not always.
Yeah.
So
can I give my breakdown on why I think they do this?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a money thing. Like you brought up, like it's the week after the pay-per-views, they just spend a ton of money. I don't think it's a money thing. I look at it in a couple different ways. They normally have a heavy favorite because they're looking to, it's a card after a pay-per-view. There's not as much excitement, but you're going to get one of two things when you have mismatches. You're either going to get a highlight reel finish for the favorite, or you're going to get an upset that people talk about and possibly a highlight reel finish from the upset. So it makes it easier for people to go, hey, I missed that card and there was a highlight reel finish, maybe one or two of them. And we saw a couple of them tonight, especially early in the card. And the head kick knockout in the female fight. We had some good fights on the prelims, but they were mismatches on paper, but when you look at it and you go back and say like, okay, the fight should have gone this way or that way. The bottom line is I think it makes it easier for the UFC to pool the content and be like, hey, this person has a highlight reel knockout and one of the biggest upsets of the year. I can use that as a marketing tool moving forward for that fighter who was the underdog going into the fight. And then if they're a heavy favorite, they should be able to be getting some sort of highlight reel, either knockout or some cool submission. Because if you think about it, right, John, think about they've got to put all these reels together throughout the year or someone's career. What kind of footage can I get from you that I can put into it, that I can put into when you fight on the next card? So I need something like this. This was one of the biggest upsets of the year by this young fighter just coming up, making their debut or their second fight in the UFC, whatever it is. That's my take on why they do these cards right after. Cause there's not a lot of, people are like, look, I just spent $80. We just did that last week. I'm not going to watch fights again. But then when they see a highlight reel knockout or they see a huge upset, or it's talked about there was a huge upset, people are like, damn, I missed that fight. Damn, I missed that card. And then they'll start to try to tune in to the younger fighters. Plus it gives the younger fighters an opportunity, I think, to showcase their skills. There's that. And then I think also too, that this is the moments that they put the two people that are coming off losses, an opportunity for one of them to get a win and move forward. So those are the two reasons that I believe that the UFC does cards like this right after the pay-per-view. Kind of gets people buzzing a little bit because the mismatches generally will lead to highlight reels and tight finishes or big upsets.
Yeah, well, when you're saying, the mismatches, you can go back, UFC, 313, only had 10 fights. Mm-hmm. But out of those 10 fights, 6 of them went to decision. There was 4 finishes. Mm-hmm. And again, you look at, tonight's fights, 9 of them were finishes out of 13. So you had 4 decisions. So you had less decisions in more fights. And again, that's what you're talking about. That's where you'll get those mismatches. Something I could be off by 1, but
yeah, there was 9 finishes.
Okay. So, and that's, people want to see finishes. That's really, it's a big thing in fighting is people are all about, if it's a great fight and it goes to a decision, okay, no problem. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they want to see the knockout. They want to see the submission. They want to see someone finish someone. They don't want the judges part of it. They don't want the referees part of it. Mm-hmm. They want the fighters to settle who is the best here. And that's what you always tend to get in these smaller shows that happen at the Apex after a pay-per-view. And a lot of it is because there might be some, matchmaking that people would look at and go, they're trying to select who they want to move forward, in the promotion and see if that person can. Doesn't mean that they're going to, but yeah, it could be. It's just, I enjoy these cards. I really like the ones that I don't expect anything out of, because there's always a performance in there that I go, damn, that was a hell of a fight.
Do you remember though, we didn't expect much out of the Henry Cejudo card either. And look at how damn good that card was.
That's true.
That was a fantastic card. The crowd was electric. Look, the Northwest.
But again, you didn't have to pay for it.
You didn't have to pay for it. But, and that was the weekend before the UFC pay-per-view. I don't think that people expected that undercard to be as good as it was, and it was. It was spectacular. In this card situation, we find normally that it's fighters that are either, coming off a loss, or they're making their debut, or, like I said, mismatched. And it gives an opportunity for the UFC to say, hey, this person has, like I go back to it, had, a huge upset against so-and-so. And this person, if they were heavily favored, they had a great knockout or a great submission against so-and-so on their debut or whatever it was. I mean, there was some great stuff tonight. Like, Ribeiro looked good. Vallejos looked great against Troy. These are things like Vallejos. This was his first fight in the UFC in his debut, basically. I know he was in the Dana White Contender Series, but he was a heavy favorite. He was a minus 600.
Yeah, but you got to look at his first fight in the Dana White Contender Series. Who did he lose to?
I get it, John Silva.
John Silva, right? And you look and you go, and then he put on a great performance after that. So big things were expected out of him, and he delivered.
Yeah.
But then you can go, big things were also expected out of Musasa, Josias Musasa, who was fighting Carlos Vera, who, in Carlos Vera's first fight, dislocated his shoulder, had to get out of the fight, and no one was expecting much out of him. They were expecting big knockout power by Musasa, and look at what happened in that one. And so those are the ones that when that happens and you look and you go, that's why you fight the fight.
Yeah, it is why you fight the fight. All right, well, hey, let's go ahead and go right into the main event. You got Roman Dolidze versus Marvin Vettori. What were your takeaways from this fight?
Multiple things in it. First off, Roman Dolidze is just a tough son of a bitch. Coming forward and putting pressure on Marvin was very smart. I love the game plan with it. He's not. I did not think that he could win if he wasn't trying for takedowns. I'm being honest. I thought, he could definitely win if he's working for takedowns and he gets a takedown. He's really good on the ground, and he's aggressive on the ground with his ground and pound, and he's just a solid fighter overall. But he's not super fast in the stand-up. His hands are not fast. He'll throw crazy combinations because he's got a hell of a chin, and he takes good shots. But I thought that, if it was going to end up being on the feet, I looked at Marvin Vettori being the guy that would win it. So I was wrong there because Marvin Vettori was coming off of a long layoff. But Marvin, you could tell, was not ready for just fight speed, just the ability to handle the pressure and throw multiple combinations. Marvin kept on throwing singles for most of it. Not that he didn't throw combinations in it at times, but a lot of, you take a look, he would enter, he would throw one, and he would try to exit and get out without being hit. And the rounds were close, but I had Dolidze winning the majority of them, just like the judges did, based upon, he got hurt in the one round, and I gave that one to Vettori because Vettori landed some really big shots in it. But other than that, he was landing the better shots overall. He was checking kicks well at times. He was, people can say what they want, and it's great when Marvin is sitting there, shaking his head. Every time Marvin shakes his head, the judges go, "That scored, because he's showing it, and the kicks up the middle, the teep kicks, dude. He looked like Andy Hughes sometimes throwing the axe kick and stuff, but he was at least trying to have a variety of attacks, even though he did not go for the takedowns. But I thought overall, he showed there's something about the Georgian water, because you got to have a gas tank to push as hard as he did. You got to have a gas tank to survive some of the shots when he got hurt in that one round and come back. He looked really good. He listened to his corner. He was trying to do what, Eric Nixick was saying. I couldn't tell you what Merab was saying because he started speaking Georgian and stuff. But other than that, I look at it and it's one of those, Marvin's got to get back to fighting. This was a long layoff, and it showed in, just his approach to what he's going to do. He's still a tough son of a bitch, and he's still a really good fighter, but he let that fight get away from him based upon he did not execute at times when he needed to throw multiple combinations that would have given Dolidze more problems. He was out there throwing ones, and you can't usually win throwing ones.
Yeah, well, I felt like when Marvin had success, it was when he was throwing more than 2s and 3s. He kind of smothered. He made him fight him in a phone booth. If you take a look at Dolidze, right, everything's got to be long, and he's very loopy. And when he misses you, he kind of tries to do that backhand, that little back elbow or whatever it was. And he was having success with it every once in a while.
Yeah, even if it doesn't hurt, it at least, get your attention like son of a bitch.
Yeah, it does. What it does, it throws your rhythm off.
Yeah.
It makes you blink. And by then, the guys, Dolidze's moved left to right after he's landed it, and you're not in the same spot you were. Every time you blink, that's why they have athletes use those glasses that they blink and you just catch the ball. Or, you throw a punch. We used to use it at AKA. We'd wear the glasses, and guys would just try to shadow box at our face, and we would have to still be able to move, our head offline. It makes a big difference. And that situation is just keeping the glove in the face and just touching and pushing your head, and Dolidze would move out of the way, and Vettori couldn't retaliate. So I thought only when he had success in the 3rd round when he flurried him and was able to get him rocked and hurt. And then he had success in the beginning of the 5th. Outside of that, I mean, the 1st round, it was close round. I give it to Dolidze, but he outstruck Dolidze when you looked at the numbers. So, I mean, I don't know, but that was the only round he outstruck Dolidze, though.
Yeah.
The rest of the fight, and then even in the 3rd round when he rocked him, the strikes were only 19-19, I believe.
Yeah.
The rest of the rounds, Dolidze looked like he outstruck him by significant strikes.
And it looked like in the 5th that was going to change because Vettori was aggressive in the beginning. He was going after him. He was forcing him back. He was putting him on his back foot. You went, okay, this is what you're looking for?
Yeah.
And then it stopped.
But look, and talk about ring rust. Like Dominic Cruz has always said, there's no such thing as ring rust. You just got to train. But what there is it's not ring rust as much as it is to say it's hard to replicate fight pace. Yeah. Fight speed, fight pace. It's hard to do it when you get in there and have someone pushing on you, because every time you see them take a step back and take a breath is when your opponent would push forward. When I fought Gilbert Melendez, anytime he saw me take a deep breath, he would step on the gas. Didn't matter how tired he was. And then every time I saw him take a step back, I would push forward, even though I was like, man, this sucks. Those thoughts go through your head. If I don't push him now, he'll just push back on me shortly. He'll get his breath, and then I'll be still stuck here standing. I didn't get any strikes in when he was tired. And so it's a mental game you guys play with each other. Just Roman Dolidze came off with, he's been more active than Vettori over the last 2 years. And it just showed. He was a little bit more crafty with certain stuff. Like you said, the axe kick, the push kick up the middle. I was very surprised he didn't wrestle. But I was also surprised in the exchanges that he didn't at least threaten it. But even when he did kind of get down on there, he wasn't that great with his wrestling. Almost like as if he's been away from it so long that it's not really part of his game anymore. And that's the sad part when you start seeing guys start to fall in love with their striking who have decent wrestling or good wrestling. So I hope he doesn't get away from it, because if he's going to make a run at that 185-pound title, he's going to need to bring it back. You can't, with his striking, it's good. It gets him through, but it's not good enough to beat the top guys at 185 pounds. So he's going to have to start utilizing his wrestling and get back to that. So that's a conversation I think that Nick needs to have with him. If you want to make a real legit run at the 185-pound title, you need to make sure you're focusing on your wrestling and chaining them together. Yeah, not just wrestling and then, striking. It's not just striking and then wrestling. It's the two things together.
You just have to go back and watch his fight against Nasruddin Imavov. Mm-hmm. And there, that's what'll show you. No, you need to be able to wrestle. You need to be able to utilize that, because it's going to change the fight for you. It's going to make the fight, easier as far as the stand-up game. So your stand-up game just gets better based upon someone being worried about being taken down, so they're not as offensive.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next fight is Zaleski dos Santos versus Njokuani. Chitty bang bang.
Chitty bang bang. Look, I love Chitty, and I'm always happy to see him do well. And my real thing with Chitty is, first round, I don't care who he's fighting. He's a problem for people because he's super explosive. He's very fast. He's got beautiful kicks, and they come. He doesn't telegraph them. His stand up is clean. It is very linear, as was said in the broadcast, which is true because He's got a traditional, Muay Thai stance in the way that he does things. But he's gotten way better as far as his defensive grappling, his ability to get himself, and utilize the fence in an effective way to get himself back to a neutral position with his opponent. I thought Zaleski dos Santos did really well in the first round. He actually hurt him, and looked good in it. But the finish, the knee, just the double knee, and the way that he switched that knee, because he missed with the first one, and he switched the knee, because he had a hold of the neck and brings it up, and it hit. I don't think it hit the chin, but it definitely, smacked Zaleski, put him down, and then it was the finish. And that's always been the thing about Chidi, is you don't want Chidi throwing blows on top of you, because he is super aggressive, got big elbows. He doesn't, hold back. He goes for the finish. And it's good to see him with this. And this at, normally we're seeing that at 185 pounds. Now at 170 pounds, look, he's a big body at 170 pounds.
He's so big,
and he's going to cause some problems for people, because there's not, right now in the 170 pounders, there's not the great wrestlers that are out there, really. And there's guys that have good wrestling that sometimes tend to use it, and sometimes they don't use it at all. And he's going to fit in there very well, and he's going to cause some problems for people. I tell you, I would love to see Chidi. He's not in that position yet, but think about him against someone like Buckley. That'd be a great fight. Both of them, super strong, fast, good, explosive on the feet. I think Buckley's a better wrestler and stuff, but overall, there's a lot of good fights that you can put Chidi in at 170 now. I really like that weight class for him. Kind of surprised he was able to get down to it, because he's a big guy when you're standing there with him. At 170 pounds, he's going to cause some people some problems. And he performed really well. He had Zaleski guessing and in trouble if trying to figure out the range, and he was having problems getting into him at times. And that's part of what he can do with all those kicks and just the beautiful teep kicks he does up the middle. Those hurt. People have no idea when someone takes, and some guys do it, everyone does it different. Some guys use their toes, and they jab the toes into your, solar plexus, or they use the ball of the foot. But both of them suck. Mm-hmm. I don't like the toes, as I think the toes are worse. Yeah. But it's just, it is what it is. And when someone's effective with it, man, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, Kung Lee was really good at using his toes. Lyoto Machida, very good at using his toes. And you can always tell because they tape their toes. Yep. They'll tape just by itself, just to make sure it doesn't get bent the wrong way. They'll tape it really well. Sometimes they'll tape them together, but mainly they'll just tape them individually to make sure that the toes don't get bent back or jammed in. And it's painful, man. It's very painful. I sparred so many times with Kung Lee, and I was like, either I was all the way out or all the way in fighting him in a phone booth. Yeah, don't let him. That was it. That was all. Like, I wasn't letting you stay at range and trying to kick the shit out of me, especially into the gut. Oh, it's the worst, because you always have to be worried of the spinning back kick with him, the side kick to the gut too, as well as the toe.
Oh, Kung Lee's side kick.
Yeah,
was Joe Rogan's got a very good side kick. Kung Lee's was better.
Yeah, I mean, I felt Kung's. I never felt Joe's, but Kung's was pretty nasty.
Oh man.
Yeah, pretty nasty. And then Machida as well. I felt Machida's as well. He came to AK a couple times. I sparred with him a couple rounds, and his little brother too, Chinzo. Yeah, same thing. Same. I was like, man, you little gnat, get away from me.
Yeah, he just didn't have the weight behind it.
No, but he was still very crafty. He was crafty on the feet. To me, he was better than his brother on the ground. Lyoto, he was better than Lyoto on the ground. But look, when you were talking about fights for Chidi at 170, I mean, Vicente Luque would be a great fight.
Yeah.
Him and Luque, him and Michael Morales would be a fun fight. Morales would be a little bit younger, a little bit less experienced, but obviously just up and comer, but that's a good fight, at least for us, entertainment wise.
Oh, yeah.
I could probably even go all the way down to Jeff Neal.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Neal and him would be a fun fight.
Would be.
I'd keep him right there. I'm not looking to go any lower than that. Right now, I'd probably keep him right there until I see him get a win over one of those top, up into the top 10 guys. Somewhere in there.
He's in that position. He's 35, 36 years of age, somewhere in there right now. And you look and you go, look, he's got one run, and he's got to make it. And I think this 170 pound, division, he can make a run. Doesn't mean he's going to finish it off, but he's got some good wins in the UFC.
Yeah.
And now he's on a 3-fight win streak. So, God bless him. Look, he's had a ton of fights in a lot of places, and he's always been a guy that he puts it out there. He does tend to fade off in the later rounds, and so I don't think I've ever seen him in a 5-round fight.
I think look, there's a couple ways you can look at it when guys fade off in the later rounds. He's a big guy, but is he a big guy for 185? I don't think so. He's height-wise, he is. Muscular-wise, all that stuff, being able to move guys around and wrestling and that stuff. I don't think he is a super big guy for 185. Yeah. Now at 170, will the weight cut kill him to get down there? Will he fade in the second, third rounds? We're going to find out. He only got to the second round tonight. But I mean, look, I thought he had, he got
the guy he beat is a real guy.
No, he is. Zaleski Dos Santos is a real guy. I actually, John, you and I had the show in the midweek show, and I said, I kind of am leaning towards Dos Santos because if he puts the pressure, fights Chidi in a phone booth, and he wrestles a little bit and grapples a little bit, he couldn't get past the push kick.
Oh, no.
He was struggling. And he was able to rock Chidi a second, in that first round. But then once Chidi kind of came back and refreshed up, he was getting right back to the push kick and all the other things that came along with it. And it became problems for Dos Santos. I thought Chidi fought a very good fight. I want to see what he can do next. But I think at this guy's age, you really got to start thinking about putting him against guys like Vicente Luque, Michael Morales, Jeff Neal. Do you put him with someone like a Stephen Thompson? I think they got too much respect for Stephen Thompson. I don't think they do that to him. Yeah. But I think, and I think it'd be a fun fight. I'd like to see it. But I love Stephen Thompson, man. So, I want to see him fight. Anyways, I want to see him get wins. And that would be a really tough fight for him. Just stylistically, it'd be a tough fight. Great. Let me ask you this though. Early stoppage
in that one,
because he was covering, he was defending.
Yeah,
I thought it was an early stoppage.
It could have gone longer. It's a lot of it is what you hear and see up close. Sometimes you'll see the fact that the guy is now closing his eyes. He's not looking for a way to try to get himself out of the problem. And now he's just sitting there covering up, closes their eyes like, I'm just going to hope this goes away. And that's usually an indicator of why a referee will go, no, I'm going to take you out of it. You got to be looking for a way. And the only way for you to look for an opening is to have your eyes open and be looking at your opponent. Normally when a fighter is looking at their opponent and in that position, you're going to see referees give them more time. It's when their eyes start to get closed, and you can watch Dos Santos and that his eyes closed up. I saw it in the replay. I could see squeezed down. So I understand it. But yeah, I understand why you thought it was early.
Yeah, I thought it was early just because he was defending himself and the shots weren't really getting through. But you told me this a long time ago, and it never really clicked until obviously after I retired because I'm just stupid like that. But is that when you rock somebody and they go down, don't start throwing punches, start throwing elbows.
Always.
As soon as you start throwing the elbows, it kind of puts the ref into a position of like, elbows hurt a lot more than the punches. And if I start seeing that you're not doing anything, it only takes 3 or 4 and the ref's like, okay, look, I'm going to jump in. If you follow up quickly with a lot right away.
And it's, Josh, people don't really seem to understand. Not only is the elbow harder, it has more power. Most of the time, we've done tests with fighters and, punching, pads and then elbowing the pad. They generate more power with an elbow by far. It's crazy how much is actually there. So, and that's when we're talking about like ground and pound situations. Hammer fist are actually many times more powerful than the straight punch in a ground and pound situation. So it's knowing what the fighter is using as a tool and then looking at the effect is what the referee is balancing out. But I understand why you kind of look at it. Could it have gone longer? Yeah, it could have, but I understand Mark Smith and why he stopped.
Yeah, the other reason why, as soon as he jumped in, I saw the Dos Santos kind of put his hand on his chest like, why? Yeah. But fighters do that shit all the time.
Yeah, so. But it's easy to do a lot of things when they made the opponent stop.
Yeah, very true. Moving on to the next one, Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holobaugh.
This one of those, I really like Kurt Holobaugh. He's one of those guys. He's a gritty, tough fighter. And I'm going to be honest. I would have thought, for him to win, being on the ground was the way for him to win. But Alexander Hernandez actually, taking him to the ground was the way he ended up getting the win in this fight. If you're going to look at it overall, Kurt Holobaugh was trying to, do things down there, but Alexander Hernandez is an athlete. You can see it. He's a fast twitch, good athlete. He leaves himself open a lot, in the fight, and that's sometimes what makes for exciting fights. His opponents have opportunities, but he was just in this situation. It's one of those. I've got the gritty, grizzled veteran fighter who's tough as hell. He's got good skills, but athletically is slowing down. Has taken a lot of damage throughout his career. Has never been the greatest athlete, and then I've got this guy over here who's fast, athletic, strong, all those things. And I looked at this one and I go, it's gonna be a tough fight for Holobaugh to win. He didn't lose it the way I thought he would. I thought Alexander would have kept the fight on the feet and just beat him up there, but he actually did better when he was on the ground, which I didn't think he would like to do with Holobaugh.
Yeah, when fighters are getting older and they're jiu-jitsu guys, they have a tendency sometimes just to try to keep attacking the same moves. I've gave criticism to one of the guys that we're very close with is Brent Premise.
Yeah.
He goes to the well so many times with the same techniques off of his back, and he's comfortable on his back because it works for him in grappling in the gym and all of this, but it doesn't work against guys inside the cage after you get sweaty. And those guys have a desire to not give up.
Well, they're not going to give up the same way the guy in the gym gives up.
Absolutely. Sure, you can catch the guy on the gym, but is the guy at your level? That's one. Two is, are you striking the guy as much as the guy's striking you at the time? There's so many things and factors that play into it.
Yeah, there is.
But look, I thought Kurt Holobaugh, I thought he fought a really good fight.
So he did.
On the feet, he was fantastic, was putting the pressure, was landing the cleaner shots. Hernandez was struggling with him on the feet. I thought this was a classic case of Hernandez basically lunging in, throwing his shots, but leaving himself so long on the back out is when he was getting hit.
Yeah.
He's getting countered. Holobaugh was fighting him better inside the phone booth, had the cleaner boxing, to be honest. And he looked really good on the feet.
He was tighter.
And the grappling, Holobaugh, where he lost was he was comfortable just settling on the bottom instead of trying to work his way back up to his feet. Chasing submissions, like that old routine of sweep, submit, get up, or submit, sweep, get up. Like you've got to work those rotations as much as possible. And he wasn't doing that.
Yeah, I agree. Damone Blackshear looked fantastic against Cody Gibson, and this was after Michael Bisping said, "This is the best Cody Gibson I've ever seen." And I don't disagree with Michael. I think Michael was right. Cody was going after him in that first round. It's that Blackshear is that guy that he's had quite a few fights, and he's had some losses in there, but a lot of them you look at it and you go, "Look, he's a different fighter now." And he's rounded that corner, and he's put himself into a different atmosphere as far as his abilities as a fighter, his mentality as a fighter. Physically, he's very strong. Physically, he's gifted as far as he's fast. He's got great submission skills that he has learned. His stand up is getting better and better. I just look at him now, and this is his second fight in a row where he finished with a beautiful submission. First one was the rear naked he got on Stamen, who, Cody Stamen at one time, somewhere around number 7, in the bantamweights. So he beat Cody Stamen, now comes back, beats Cody Gibson. He's showing that, look, he is one of those guys that he can fight with anyone. He's just got to have the right mentality, the right game plan. It wasn't working well for him in the beginning of the fight. In the first, he was able to change things up, make things work for him, and look at what happened.
Yeah, look, anytime you have a guy who lives off athleticism, they need space to move.
Yeah.
So when I would train with Thomas DeAnge, if you smothered him, he struggled inside the pocket. It was like he wasn't a great boxer, but he needed room and range for his kicks, his side kick, his spinning back kick, his head kick. He could deliver it fast, but you had to fight him inside that phone book and smother him. So taking away their athleticism is the most important thing. And I thought Cody Gibson was doing a great job of that in that first round.
Yeah, it was.
But when you push that hard, you get tired.
Yes.
And sure, you can make your opponent tired as well. But when you're not the better grappler and he can actually eventually just get you down when you get tired, Blackshear was just the better grappler, better control, and had him work in double time, especially in that end of that first round or second round.
When you looked at the end of the first round, what did you see though?
Exhausted.
Because they're not only exhausted, he got hurt. That elbow, it hurt him. And you could see it as he was trying to get up. And you're going, oh man, he's going to have problems in the second round. And that's exactly what happened. But tough dude. It's just that he doesn't have the same physical capabilities. And so by pushing hard and, having the success, it was all because of all that, energy and effort. It's hard to hold on to and maintain against a talented guy.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though, John, is it's hard for me to believe that he's 37 years old, Cody Gibson. He looks like he's fucking 12.
I know.
He's 37 years old, and he looks like he's 12. Jeez. All right. Ribeiro versus Nurgozhay.
I tell you what, man, that was Ribeiro looked good.
Mm-hmm.
He was confident. He went out there. He said he was going to knock him out. He was lighting him up with the jab. The jab was working for him. He would hit, throw in the right hand behind it and stuff. And he just kept Nurgozhay just at bay. Nurgozhay would come in. He hit him with a big shot that put him down. Didn't go crazy. Got him to the point where it was okay. You know what? I'm not going to get you out of the fight at this, and that was okay. But then comes into the second round, and that the Kimura was nice. People sit there and say what they want. It made him fucking turn, and then he was able to finish it off by continuing to crank it. He didn't get the knockout that he said, but he definitely got the finish, and it was a very nice finish against a guy who at that point had never lost.
Yeah, John, I thought it was a great performance by him. And then there goes a missing weight by 4.5 pounds. Definitely, yeah. I said either he didn't want to take the chance and he wanted to go in, get the win, because then everyone forgets once you win, everyone's like, oh, well, we forgot about their 4.5 pounds. No big deal. Your pocketbook didn't, but the promotion did if you go out there and get the win. But in that, he still ended up losing, and he didn't make weight at 4.5 pounds. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sits for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if they release him already.
They might.
I wouldn't be surprised. Kevin Vallejos versus Njokuani.
You go ahead and say it.
Great performance.
There you go.
Great performance, John.
Yeah, he just looks sharp.
You know who he reminded me of in this fight? He reminded me a little bit of Ilia Topuria.
Yeah,
he kept himself slightly outside of range in boxing. And he
slid very well in and out.
He didn't move his head a whole lot, but what he did is he moved it just enough to make you miss so he could counter. And you could tell he was kind of keeping that right hand cocked the whole time, just ready to throw the punch. Just beautifully done. I thought he did everything very well. It was a fantastic performance tonight. For your first fight in the big show, I know it was at the Apex, but still, I thought he fought a fantastic fight. They had him heavily favored too.
Yeah,
it made sense. It makes sense now after I saw it. I was like, you're one law, like your fight. I get it, I understand, but I just in my mind, I'm like, I was like, that was then. This is now. It's different. You don't know how you're going to perform under the bright lights. And Choi's no slouch. He's tough. He's game on.
Been in the UFC for a while.
Yeah, and so it really, there was moments in the fight that I thought, oh, Choi's going to do this. Choi's nothing. Just couldn't do it. And that's a lot of what you see against guys that fight Ilia Topuria. Oh, he's going to hit him. Oh, he's going to do this. And he just makes them miss enough. Or he doesn't
out of
take
range.
A full shot, and it slides off, and then he counters and lands a good shot, and then next thing you know, you're waking up. And that's kind of exactly what happened in this fight. I thought it was a fantastic performance. And if you guys
and a hell of a call out.
Who did he call out?
Jean Silva again, man. He goes, I want that one back. You look and you go, have you been watching him at all?
Confident.
But you got to love it.
Yeah,
that's what you're looking for.
Look, it wasn't like he just came in and, barely got by. No, he got the finish. And then on top of it, he said he's been wanting that rematch since right after that fight. And now that he sees Jean Silva doing so well, he comes in and calls him out now. I think the UFC is going to let that boil a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to build that up a little bit. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of potential there in the future. But Vallejos got to keep getting it done. And obviously, Jean Silva is going to keep doing what he's doing. Yeah. So good stuff, man. Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann making his appearance, his debut in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Same old Ryan Spann, John.
Yep. Look, you got to look and you go, man, you've got to be able to throw and get your damn head off the center line at times. And sometimes he does, but a lot of times he leaves it right there in the middle. And that's when Cortes clocked him multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, that right hand by Cortes kept touching him. The jab was giving him nothing but problems. How many times did you see he'd come in to set up his, and Cortes pop, he'd hit him with that jab and his head would snap back and you go, And even when he was attacking, Cortes would hit him with the jab, throw his attack completely off. He was in defensive mode. He was in defensive mode for much of the fight, you know, and this is it's one of those ones you got to figure out, you know, what you're going to be. You know, Ryan Spann's got a lot of submissions and he's good on the ground. He really is. But he tends to, when someone can hit hard, he tends to like, everything starts to fall apart, you know, and it's instead of, I got to stay with a plan and this is how I'm going to use my striking to get into my grappling. It just doesn't work.
Some guys are great when they're the hammer, but they're horrible when they're the nail.
Yeah.
Got to be able to fight through that type of stuff. I looked at Anthony Hernandez tonight, or Alexander Hernandez, and I was like, he had to make adjustments in the fight. He was great when he was the hammer, but he also made some adjustments to make sure that he didn't continue to be the nail, because he was losing some of that fight. And
he was losing a lot of it on the feet.
Being able to make that adjustment says a lot about his mentality and how he's matured since he was a younger fighter. I don't see that with Ryan Spann.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to give honorable mentions. Carlos Vera, great body kicks, great job. Oh man, I thought he
called out Bisping.
What I didn't hear what he said.
Oh, did he say? He goes, well, you know, after what you said about my stand-up, I had to show you that I actually had stand-up. I'm like, oh, damn, that would hurt.
Look, I was really hoping for Stephanie Luciano to win. John, she's a dime piece, bro.
Oh, dude, that was
she's
funny.
A dime piece, but man, her chin is up in the air when she strikes. Doesn't look like she has a whole lot of grappling and wrestling to really go on. I mean, I had high expectations because she's a dime piece.
Damn, I was like, looking good.
She came to the cage. I was like, who is this? Hello. But then Sam Hughes, man, did a great job. After Sam Hughes lost the first round, could have been close.
It was close.
Yeah, I could see if they gave it to Sam Hughes as well. Second round,
and this is the problem when you have one of the judges did give Sam Hughes a 10-8. I'm not sure that all of them did. I think two of them didn't. But take a look at the first round, and now take a look at the second round, and you're going to say, "Oh, now at the end of the 2 rounds, if the fight's even." I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, half-point score system. That's where I would be at. That's where I'm at.
That's it.
You know, one would have been a 10-9.5, and then the other round would have been like a
10-8.5.
10-8.5. Exactly. Right. So it would have been like that. Yep. It just makes sense, but I know we have a hard time adding up the 10-9, 10-9 system, right? It's horrible. But look, great fight by Sam Hughes. She was, able to figure out what to do, and she got it done, man. Great job. Yeah. The guy who impressed me the most tonight was Lima.
Oh, I told you, he's good.
He's really good.
This kid is good.
Yep.
He's really shown that, the whole thing that how, his first fight in the UFC and what happened with the bite, he's got the tattoo now. It's hard and stuff, but you just look and you go, the guy that he was fighting was really good because that guy was actually winning that fight at that point. That's where it was so odd of what he did. But, now that you've seen Andre Lima fight multiple times, this kid can fight. He's good in the stand-up. He's got excellent technique. He's good with his grappling. There's something about 125 pounders, man. They got to be good everywhere, and he is.
Yeah, I think he's fantastic. Andre Lima and Kevin Vallejos tonight were the two best performances tonight. Looked clean, looked great.
Then Ribeiro.
Yeah, he looked dominant, man. He looked really dominant. Priscilla Cachoeira, she fought a great fight, great work. She's so big, John, for the weight. I mean, she got muscles on muscles, man. I'm like, damn.
You never know which Priscilla is going to show up.
Yeah, this is very true. This is very true.
That's the odd thing about her at times because, look, Nunes, has come out and she put on some good performances early. And so you look and you go, this is one that, Priscilla might have some problems with because of the pressure. Nope.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Handled it well.
I just saw the highlight of Duben getting kicked in the forehead.
Yep.
And shin to the dome, pretty much.
Well done. First round. Boom.
Yeah. All right, hey, that's gonna wrap up our UFC talk. And I thought it was overall was a good card. What would you rate the card? 10, out of 10. Give me a rate.
7.5.
7.5.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd give it probably about the same. I say 7.5 as well. Some good finishes. I think you had some upsets. You also had some good finishes, highlight real knockouts. That's what you're looking for on these kind of cards. And it gives the UFC an opportunity to build, whoever they're trying to build. I feel like obviously Ribeiro's probably going to get built up a little bit on this fight. Blackshear, I thought he showed a lot tonight in weathering the storm in the first round, coming on the second round, doing what he had to do. I think this might be the end of the road for Ryan Spann. I wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of him. They might keep him because the weight class at 205 and heavyweight is kind of, so maybe, I wouldn't look for him to really change a whole lot. Carlos Vera looked fantastic. I'd look for them to try and do something with him. Andre Lima looked fantastic. Those were the highlights I feel like from tonight. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this breakdown on that. We're going to move on to some news, but before we do that, make sure you guys shop Element. Use the promo code in our link in our description below. All right. It's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium. I can tell you this, that magnesium helps me sleep at night. So if you drink a half a can or half a packet at night before bed, it helps. It's awesome, man. I love it.
Why half?
It's a great product. Because I don't like to go to bed like with a full stomach. I can't.
Why? Because you got to get up in the middle of the night and pee?
No, not really. I mean, I do that anyways. I'm fucking almost 50, so it's you know that the bladder goes. You know that, John. Your bladder's gone for years now. It's been what, 2 decades?
No, it's been a decade. That's why you're 50.
Try to recover. It's okay. Yeah. Also, too, go to betustv.com for more odds and your best sports content.
Boom.
Go ahead, dear George. What you got for us, buddy?
All right. So before we get on to the news, I want to remind everyone that if you're not doing anything, I don't know, June 20th through the 22nd, maybe you should head your ass down to Extreme Couture and take on the Command Course. Go to MMAreferee.com and sign up now.
Look at you.
John, why don't you give us a synopsis?
No, that was
what's
perfect.
Going on? That was pretty fun.
The Command Course is about learning how to be an MMA judge. If you think that you have the ability and you care about the sport, I'm going to tell you it's a long road for anybody, but the Command Course is a good way for you to start off by getting rid of a lot of the bullshit and the mistakes that you'll make without someone teaching you the things that'll help you speed things up. It's a 3-day course. It is not easy. And I'm telling you right now, you got to know what you're looking at. You got to know all the submissions. And when I say all the submissions, you got to know all the submissions. Don't tell me that's a rear naked choke. Okay, that's great. You got to know everything. I want to know rear naked choke. I want to know a Darce choke. I want to know an anaconda choke. I want to know the difference in them. And I want to know what a head and arm choke is. And I want to know what a buggy choke is. And I want to know, you got to know everything, because if you don't know, then you're leaving a fighter's safety in jeopardy and stuff. So first thing is you got to know something about fighting. I would tell you that you're going to be better off if you're someone that is in a gym right now, working out, doing things to better yourself and learn the sport of MMA. For judging and everything, same thing. You got to know it all, because if you're going to be judging what they're doing, you got to know what they're doing. But the course itself is long. It's 3 days. There is testing at the end. You don't have to take the testing. You can take a course where you just go and learn, and that's fine. But I will tell you that you will walk away from it knowing so much more about the sport of MMA. You'll know more about the officiating. You'll know more about what the judges are truly looking for. And that I have, not only myself, but a lot of the current judges and referees that you see working in the UFC, they will be there with me teaching the course, because I like to have a lot of different people that can give a different perspective. So you hear it all. You're not hearing it just from one source. So come on out if you think that you want to be part of MMA someday.
Yeah, you can just get it from someone else besides the analyst that you hear on TV.
There you go. Which normally is wrong.
Like, can I ask you a question? Like, we're going to go back to the main event. Did he handle all that properly with the no point deduction, but, the growing kick, the 2 eye pokes, the warning in between the first round and second round? Yeah. What were your thoughts on that?
the whole thing with the hands and the commentator said something about Michael Bisping. It's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Putting your hands up. He's not telling him to put his fingers up. He's telling him if you want to have an open hand, you can put your fingers up. You can't put them out. So either close your hand or put your fingers up. Mm-hmm. It's what Herb says it all the time, and it's fine. He's not telling him you need to have your fingers up. That's what that's the correct thing for you to do. He's just telling him you can have them up. The big thing that you want to look at is it's basically effect. How much effect did any of the fouls that supposedly Roman Dolidze had during the fight? How much effect did they really have on Marvin Vettori? And you can take a look. He did, have a thumb that kind of went in his eyes as he was pushing away. Again, it's a normal thing when you have an offensive fighter coming forward, defensive fighters putting their hand out and trying to get back away from them. And that's when you'll get an eye poke. There was never one that was that serious one that you can look at and you go, yeah, that one was nasty. Mm. Same with the groin strikes. So I always look and say, you need to be judicious as far as being in control of it, but don't start to over officiate and take over what is happening in the fight based upon, you just want to take points. And I heard Brendan Fitzgerald start talking about, you need to start taking points for them to, not start doing it. Again, it's the effect. If the effect is great, then you have to level the playing field and possibly take a point because the effect has now diminished that fighter in a way that they cannot fight at the same level. When they can fight at the same level, basically, and Marvin was able to fight at the same level, try to give the warnings and try to make sure that the person's doing the things so that won't happen again.
All right. Hey, George, what else you got for us, buddy?
So when we started to record, you wanted to talk briefly on next week's main event. You have Sean Brady versus Leon Rocky Edwards.
That's a great
this is a fantastic matchup. You've got Sean Brady coming off of his great win, and you've got Leon Edwards coming off the loss of losing his title, but then also too just like mindset. And he's fighting in the UK. Feels like at home. I mean, Sean going over.
It is home.
It is home. Sean going over, over the pond or whatever and getting over there. And Sean just had a baby. So this tight.
Sean has more to fight for.
Yeah. But as soon as you have a kid, this right now is the best time to fight because now you're done for at least the next 4 or 5 months. You can spend time with your baby at home, and it's a blessing. I think this is a great time for him to get it done, and he's been able to have a camp and. Great news. Remember, we had him on the podcast. He was asking for this fight. He wanted this fight in the UK. And he thought maybe, I think it was Jack Della Maddalena that was supposed to get it. And then JDM got hurt.
Yep.
And so then now Sean stepped in. He's like, perfect. This is a great fight. Leon being the number one contender, I believe, or the number one fighter right now in that position.
Yeah.
Yep. Leon's number one. You get that win over Leon Edwards.
Oh, you're there.
You're there. But where does he get it done, though? Because taking Leon down has been proven that it's not an easy task.
No, it's not. And it's something I'm not too sure that Sean, without hurting him on the feet is going to be able to do. I'm not sure that, wrestling takedowns is where he's going to be able to take control of Leon. Leon is so good. And it's one of the things that, if I had a fighter that was going to face Leon, one of the things we would work at is 2-on-1. Leon is fantastic at 2-on-1 and making it to where I'm going to control your one arm. You will never take me down because I'll never allow you to take your hands and get them together, for that takedown. So you're going to have to work on different types of takedowns, being foot sweeps and things like that off of it. But, there's so many things with Leon that gives him an advantage in this fight on the feet. He's strong. He is physically a strong person. He's fast, he's lengthy and rangy, and he's very accurate with his strikes. Where you can look at Sean's good on the feet, and Sean's a good pressure fighter, but Sean's got to get into that phone booth to be successful against someone like Leon. Where Sean definitely has an advantage is on the ground. His jiu-jitsu and his wrestling combined, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a controlling master. People can sit there and say what they want, and I've watched the match, but Sean Brady, Craig Jones couldn't do anything with him, and it was a long drawn out process of but it was Craig Jones. Okay, we're not talking about a slouch, and he couldn't do anything with Sean Brady, and Sean Brady ended up getting the win. So we're talking, he is elite on the ground. His ability to mesh both his wrestling and the jiu-jitsu together is fantastic, and he has a great advantage there. The real question is, how is he going to be able to utilize that advantage?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that the way to beat Leon is to really try to pressure him. You've got to try to put a lot of pressure on him. I won't say he slows down. His output is not as much in that third, fourth, and fifth round in those championship rounds. He's very slick with his stand-ups.
He's a sprinter.
Very, very.
He's like his brother.
Yeah. He's like his brother. I would agree with you. He's like his brother, obviously. But Leon's got all the tools, all the weapons. He's very slick with his stand-up. He hides his kicks behind his punches. I mean, like, all of those things he's very good at getting back up to the feet. Like you said, the 2-on-1. Taking him down is one thing, but controlling and holding him down is another thing.
Yeah.
You just wasted all that energy lifting and scooping and dumping him on his head. But now, can you hold him down? That's the question. Bilal was able to get him down, but Bilal dumped him right on his head. But there's also, too, just the understanding, like, I'm not trying to hold you down. I'm just trying to land shots once I get you down, and then smothering you. But the reason why Bilal had success was because he was able just to kind of make him fight in a phone booth, and he was smothering him, making him fight off his back foot, making him uncomfortable the whole time. And I really think that in his past fights, that's where he's had problems. And even in his most current fight, that's where he had problems. And one thing that I used to give Sean Brady a problem with, I was like, man, he looks tired. And he's like, man, I got some of the best cardio. My cardio's this, my cardio's that. I'm a believer. I do believe it. There's days where you show up and it's just not your night. Like, you just feel tired. I mean, I go back to my KJ Nunes fight. It just was one of those nights where I felt great. My everything felt good, but I got in the fight, everything just felt heavy. And you have those nights. And that was apparently Sean's night when he had that night where I called him out on him getting tired. Like, you can't get tired against these elite guys. He's like, man, my cardio is so much better, this and that. And I know. And da-da-da. Anyways, my point being, he's going to have to fight him in a phone booth. He's going to have to pressure fight him. He's going to have to do very much what Bilal did, which he's very capable of doing. There's also more of a submission threat with Sean Brady if he can get him down and control him a little bit more. That can maybe put him back, put Leon back on the ground. What I mean by that is, if Sean takes him down and they go and Leon goes to all fours, Sean can rotate to the front headlock, and that'll make Leon basically start fighting hands. It's easier for him to get him back down to the ground and control him. That whole thing where people like to hang on the hips, that shit works if you're Bilal. That shit works if you're Habib in Islam. But if you're not that person, they just keep ragdolling them back down. Yeah. Work to that front headlock where you can threaten submissions, guillotines, darces, anacondas, whatever. And I think Sean's got the ability and the squeeze to do that. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. Sean's going to be pressure right inside his grill, landing the boxing and the striking. I think he can strike with him. He just doesn't want to get too comfortable on the feet. He's got to be always threatening the takedowns. Yeah. He's got to be in fantastic shape, because the way to beat Leon has kind of been shown is that you've got to push him. You've got to make him work when he's uncomfortable. And because if you give him space, man, his skill level will take over. He will control the distance. He'll land the kicks and the strikes. He'll hide. He's so sneaky. And I've sparred with him, man. This was obviously when he was younger, but shit, he ain't slow.
Doesn't matter.
No, he's probably the fastest guy I've ever trained with. He was so slick and so fast. And that was before he had wrestling. Man, he was just like, wow. I was like, man, it was the Chris Tucker feel, like which one of y'all hit me?
Which one?
So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. It's a big step up in competition for Sean Brady. Puts him right there as being the next person to fight for the title. And I'm excited for that fight, man. So the rest of the card looks pretty good, man. The main card looks good. I'm just not going to talk about any of the fights, but we're just going to give you Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Ulberg. It's going to be a fun fight, I think, on the feet. You got Gunnar Nelson and Kevin Holland. Look for Gunnar to probably get this fight to the ground, try to control Kevin. Molly McCann got a new opponent, Alexia Thanara. And then, you move on out. You got Jordan Vasenik versus Chris Duncan, Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Sharara, and then Jai Herva versus Chris Padilla. You got some good fights on this card. So there should be some fun fights, man. Let me see. Is there anyone else on here? No, that's pretty much about it. But man, there should be some good fights on this card. So looking forward to it. And you guys tune in.
I'll tell you, the very first fight of the night is Cortes-Acosta against Hernandez, and that's going to be a hell of a fight. I love watching Cortes-Acosta fight.
Yeah,
he is a caveman. He is crazy, but he is nonstop action. He's very fun to watch, so don't miss that one.
Yeah, I agree. John, I was looking. We'll talk about it later. Anyways, all right. What else you got for us there, George?
All right. So returning to the UFC, Jeremy Stephens will fight Mason Jones May 3rd. What do you think about that?
I think it's fantastic, but I do not understand how, after the fight he had with Eddie Alvarez at BKFC, and he's had a couple of really good fights with BKFC, this is another guy like a Mike Perry, man, you can do something with. How did they let him go back to the UFC?
They didn't sign him to a long-term deal. They didn't even sign him to a 2-fight deal.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and basically they told him, and from what it sounds like in the interviews I've heard him talk about, he said they thought Eddie was going to beat him.
Still, once they found out he wasn't going to beat him, and you had Jeremy Stephens there as the winner, why are you not signing him to a contract that is going to keep him in your promotion? Because his fights are exciting. The guy throws. If there's one thing, Jeremy Stephens does not back down. Okay. If you're going to sit there and say, does he have any limitations in MMA? Yeah, he's got certain limitations. The ground is definitely not his best friend. He's much more comfortable throwing heat on the feet. I like that. Throwing heat on the feet. That's pretty good. But seriously,
a really bad dad joke.
But if you're looking, bare knuckle,
yeah,
BKFC is like tailor made for him.
I think they made a mistake.
Yeah.
They should have signed him to a 3-fight deal. And right after he beat Eddie, it should have had a contract right there in front of him. Hey,
hell yes.
Let's sign this now. Let's get this thing going. Like whatever. I would have had the deal struck in the back alleyway.
Yep.
Like after the Ultimate Fighter won the finale, like, hey, where's your manager? Here you are. We're in the alley. Let's get this thing signed. Let's do a 3-fight deal. We've got guys that we want you to fight, whatever it is. Him and Mike Perry have been fucking blast. I'm not saying that. Mike Perry's a little too big for him, but I'm saying, look, Jeremy's already said, I'll fight him.
Oh, of course he would.
I'll fight him. Shit. What do I got to lose, man? My teeth. That's about it. Right? It'd be a great fight. I mean, you're not going to tell me. I'm going to tune in. So, yeah, I think that would have been it made him a huge mistake. I mean, I don't know what the UFC signed up to, whether it's a 2-fight, 4-fight, whatever. But normally they do a 4-fight deal.
Usually 4-fight. Exactly.
Yeah, 4 to 6 fights. They try to go to that 4 to 6 fight deal.
Look, they can drop you whenever they want.
Yeah,
okay?
They can.
That's just what it is. But Jeremy's always going to be a guy that's entertaining to watch. And so good for the UFC on bringing him back.
John, I think also too that this just goes to prove, like, if you fight anywhere outside the UFC, as long as you're having success, the UFC will bring you in.
Oh, they'll want you back.
Yeah, they'll want you back. I mean, he's made a name. He's made it an even bigger name for himself, I believe, being outside the UFC with all these BKFC fights, beating Eddie Alvarez. They're like, hey, come on, come back to daddy. We got you. Papa. We'll take care of you. Yeah, come back to Papa. We got you. Had Eddie won, I bet you Eddie could have came back and commanded some money too. I mean, there's a little bit of room there, I think. I don't know. Eddie was looking pretty big. I mean, the weight class, he's thick, man. He reminds me a lot of Sean Brady. A lot. The way they're barreled.
Dude, it's called the Philly back.
The Philly shell back, right?
It's the Philly shell back. You got a turtle back, it's giant wings.
I think BKFC dropped the ball, and hey, it works out for us. We get to see him back in the UFC, and we'll see how he does. Looking forward to it. What else you got, George?
So on the same night, we have booked Reinier de Ridder versus Bo Nickal.
RDR going up against the Nickal.
I mean,
John, what do you think of this one?
This was the fight that we were kind of, hey, this makes sense.
It does.
De Ridder being number 15, I believe, right?
Yep.
I think he's at 15. Bo Nickal was 15. De Ridder knocked him out. Well, let's just see what it is. Let's go wrestler versus grappler. DeRitter has absolutely no fucking wrestling at all. And he's got great submissions. But what he does have is great pressure. Bo Nickal's been able to knock guys out, but can he knock out DeRitter? I mean, DeRitter's been dropped. He's been hurt. He's been, but he's got the tenacity, man. He keeps coming. Will Bo Nickal jump into his guard if he does rock him? Will he go to the ground with him if he does rock him?
Okay. Did you watch Bo Nickal's last fight?
No, John. Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. What did he do?
He just stand around.
He just against a good submission grappler. What did he do? Nope. I'm not going on the ground at all.
I get that part.
And guess what he's going to try to do again?
You think so?
Yeah. If there's one, this has nothing to do with, balls. This has to do with brains. And Bo Nickal is not a stupid person. And the people around him are not stupid. And they know, well, let's see. How can RDR get a win? There's one way. He's going to catch his neck, or he's going to catch a knee, or he's going to catch an arm, and he's going to submit him with it. That's the only way. It's the same way, Gordon Ryan went with, Bo Nickal, and Bo lasted 20-some minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because Gordon Ryan couldn't take him down. And eventually, how did Bo Nickal lose that? Well, he got caught, in a leg lock. It's the same thing. It's the same way for RDR to win the fight. But on the feet, RDR is not good enough. Bo Nickal is still learning his stand-up, but at least it's decent. It's better than RDR's is. And so I think you're going to see the same thing that, we saw in his last fight against Craig. I think you're going to see him just say, nope, not going to the ground. I use my wrestling to keep this fight. I'm going to be Chuck Liddell without the power.
He's got some power.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't have the overhand right like Chuck had.
No.
But, I mean, look, it's hard for me to go against a ginger, man. I've wrestled gingers. They're fucking strong. They've got great cardio. They're fucking savages.
Yeah.
They're so hard to deal with. I don't know what it's like, retard strength. That's really what it is.
It is.
No other word to say. It really just comes down to
Crazy.
that. I mean, I'm not calling Bo a retard, but I'm just simply saying the dude, he just something about him it makes it very difficult for people to deal with him on the wrestling mat or in the cage. So
people can be as upset as they want, but this is about right now. Bo Nickal's 7-0 on his record. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's still super young.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like RDR's got a huge amount of fights. He's got like 20 fights, 21, 22 fights. But 7 fights, and they're all basically in the UFC except for the Dana White contender ones.
Got it.
And you look and you go, hey, how does he get, because this is about winning right now. How does he get the win? Well, the way he gets the win is use your wrestling to keep it on the feet, since RDR is dangerous in one place. That's on the ground. He's not dangerous in the stand-up. Mm-hmm. So I see that's what he's going to do.
Well, I mean, John, look, they've moved DeRitter up to number 13 now. No. So they moved him up to 13. You got Dolidze, who's going to probably obviously go up, but he's just got dropped down by 1. He'll go up to probably 9, somewhere in there, maybe 10. And then Brendan Allen, Anthony Hernandez will probably bounce up to where Marvin Vettori was. But I mean, I look at, they got Kopilov at 15, Michelle Pajeda at 14. So, I mean, I look at Bo Nickal with a good win right now over DeRitter at number 13. That puts him in the top 15. It makes a lot of sense. DeRitter, though, I mean, Bo's got to be careful the knees up the middle. Bo's got to be careful the over, the guillotine. And so if his head gets down to waist level, be careful that guillotine, because DeRitter, he's tall and long and lanky.
Oh, he is.
It's he'll hit those.
But he's not explosive.
Anywhere. No, he's not explosive at all. He just walks forward. That's the other thing. Look, I know Bo Nickal had really good cardio when it came to wrestling, but this is a 15-minute fight, and a guy that and DeRitter's proven, he just walks forward, and if you hit him with something, he just falls to the ground and says, come on down here. That's what he does. And Bo's not going to do that, so he'll stand back up, and he'll just keep pressuring you and keep pressuring you. Can Bo fight him off, however many times he needs to fight him off in 15 minutes without making a mistake? I think that's what a lot of people want to know. And, I also look at it, Dana was also like, hey, he needs more work. He needs more time. He needs more work. Dana's trying to protect him, and I think it's a smart play because he's got a little bit of that Penn State cult following, along with the wrestling following.
Sure.
You know, so he's got that. There's something you can build on if you're a promoter. And right now, the UFC's lacking stars, and so making sure that they don't hurt the ones that are up and coming, like a Bo Nickal, is very important to them.
Well, so, I mean, you could take a look and figure this out. You know, as simple as it gets. RDR's got 19 wins on his record. That's nice. Only 2 losses. And those 2 losses were in one, and they were to bigger people. But out of those 19 wins, he's got 2 TKOs. Okay, no KOs, 2 TKOs. So he's got, let's say, 11 submission wins. Where do you think he's dangerous? You know, it's pretty simple. You know, this is about game planning. This is about knowing, you know, hey, here's his strengths, here's his weakness. I don't play another man's game, and Bo Nickal is smart enough to know exactly what he needs to do.
Producer, next.
Producer has a name. You briefly mentioned that UFC has a star problem.
Ginger George.
That would be double G to you, mister.
Double G, baby.
Double
Ginger
G.
George. I love that. What were you saying? We say the UFC has a star problem.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned UFC has a star problem last week, and just in that sentence with Bo Nickal.
Well, I mean,
what
John,
do you think about that?
I'm going to pose a question to you. Do they have a star problem, or do they just suck because right now there's just too many fights, and so we're getting a watered down version of all of what they've been doing? Look, they've spent so much time building up the magnitude of what the UFC is now, but have they stretched themselves so thin that we're getting watered down products, or is it just because they don't have a lot of up and coming stars right now?
I think it's a multitude of things, but it's a matter of they have to do so many shows that you can't have that many stars as far as for each show. You know, they put the stars in specific slots, and those are normally in pay-per-view shows in places and stuff. But, you know, if you're going to take a look and say, do they have stars? Yeah. And when I say you can go just through the weight classes, you know, their champion in 125 is Pantoja. Is he a star? Not really. You know, he's a hell of a fighter. I think Brandon Moreno is more of the star in that, just based on personality right now and everything. But, you know, there's a couple of guys that you're looking at. Okay, they're doing better than, you know, they always had Demetrius Johnson and then nothing really, you know, as far as star power. And they do have quite a few names now, at least in 125. I go to 135. I think they got a lot of stars. You know, look at Marab's a star now. You know, people are, you know, they love his personality. They love that he's, you know, nonstop. You know, they may not love everything about the way that his fighting style is, but you got to look and go, he's a star now, and people are enjoying just him. You know, they want to be around him. They want to see him. There's other guys in that weight class you look at and you go, Peter Yan he's up there, but, you know, he speaks Russian, and so maybe not that big a star. But guys like Umar Nurmagomedov is getting there, and Corey Sandhagen is there. You know, you go to the featherweight division, Volkanovski's a star still. You know, the question is, does he win this fight against Lopez and that star power stays, or does he lose it and that star power actually starts to diminish and go away? Based upon that would be his 3rd loss in a row. You know, and so you get 3 losses in a row, things start to go away. You know, obviously Max Holloway is kind of going up in weight, so I could say that he's a featherweight, but he's a star no matter what. But they have other guys in that. You know, Yair Rodriguez, he's a star. You know, you can sit there and it's going to be interesting to see what they do, you know, with the fight with Patricio Pitbull against Yair. If Patricio gets the win and it's an exciting win, they'll have another one real quick, and a guy that's got a lot of background and stuff. They have the guys, you know, Makhachev. If you're going to look at who's their main guys right now, they lost Poatan, basically. He's still a star, but he's not a champion now, so they're going to have to rebuild him and stuff. But Islam Makhachev is their big star. He's a big star right now for him.
Bigger than John Jones?
Yeah, because John is a guy that doesn't here's the problem when you look at it. Islam doesn't cause them any problems. What problems does he cause him? Zero. Okay. He not only goes out and fights, he goes out and he finishes his fights. He fights anybody. He doesn't make excuses about anything. And he doesn't get in trouble anywhere. That's an easy person to deal with. With John, and I'm not saying John so much right now, but throughout his career, there's been a lot of problems and there's been a lot of setbacks, and they've had to strip the title from him and different things. So you look and you go, yeah, John's is at the end of the line. And that's why I look and I say, is he a star? He's still a star. And as far as he's got the reputation, he's definitely got the record, he's definitely got the skill set to be that star. But he's never been the personality that the UFC has wanted him to be, in my opinion.
Would you say that, like, if you put the two people side by side, and I know that, obviously John Jones came along later in his career with where social media was more prevalent. But who to you is a bigger star, Fedor Emelianenko or John Jones?
Oh, Fedor Emelianenko.
Why do you say that?
It's because he is.
Why?
Okay, and
why is he
again? Because as good as John Jones is, and he's phenomenal. Fedor caught the imagination of the MMA fans. Okay. And when I say caught the imagination of him, first off, he was undefeated for so long. And look at Fedor has a whole lot more fights than John Jones. So, when you sit there and say, yeah, he's got losses. Yeah, he does. But he had a longer win streak than John Jones has a record. So you can sit there and take a look and go, man, he captivated the world of MMA for years. And he had a personality that only benefited the world of MMA. He never made it look bad. He never did anything to soil the reputation of any promotion or any, anything to do with the sport. And so you're looking everybody that, coming up that is, let's say, your age, they all know who Fedor is, and they still to this day, look at him as royalty in the world of MMA, and he deserves it because he not only walked the walk in that fashion, he did it in a way that never ever made MMA look bad.
Yeah. I look at John Jones has been away from the sport. Then he just had his 2 fights. He was away from the sport for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years.
He lost a lot of his career, the best years of his career.
Which
is a tragedy.
I look, no matter how I feel about John and the cheating and the situation of steroids and picograms and all that stuff, doesn't matter how I feel about all that stuff. The bottom line is, I feel like people right now would rather just see him go so we can move on with the sport. This lingering around of like, oh, am I going to fight Tom Aspinall or not? Or I think that if he left, that no one would care anymore. They'd be like, it's good. He's gone. Now we can move on. The sport can start to take off. When people kind of just hang around too long and they make it about them, which I think he should. I think he should be trying to get as much money as he possibly can to fight Tom Aspinall.
I agree.
I think he should be. I get the feeling in this where the sport is at right now. He was waiting for the Alex Pereira fight, hoping that Alex would win, and then if he did, then he was going to fight Alex. That was stylistically a way better fight for him. Oh, yeah. Less risk, better, bigger pay-per-view numbers, I think. And it would have probably been the second time don't even think it would have been close. I don't think he would have gotten 1 million there. He's only gotten over 1 million pay-per-view buys once in all the time he's headlined or been on a card. He's only got 1 million pay-per-view buys once. It was the second DC fight. He's never broke 1 million pay-per-view buys before. Because I had people telling me how John was a big star, how John, is the biggest star in the UFC right now.
I didn't think that fight broke 1 million.
I thought the second one did. One of the DC fights broke 1 million.
Did it? Then it would have been the second one.
It was. I thought it was the second one. Yeah, that's it. That's the only time. And so when I look at people are asking me like, who's the biggest star? I thought it was Alex. Alex to me was the biggest star in the UFC right now.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, he was. He may still be. John, people love him.
John,
people love him. They love everything.
Except his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, except his ex-girlfriend. She's salty, man.
Oh man.
But then
she's not salty. She's bitter.
She's married, John. She's putting out stuff like that. She's married.
Really?
Yeah. Can you imagine if your wife was so bitter and still putting out comments like that? Oh, bro, you belong to the streets, young lady. Beat it.
Exactly.
Get it. Beat it. But then I would put Islam probably number 2, or I'd put Poatan and Islam right there, number 1, number 2, somewhere in the pay-per-view buys, if that's what it is. But I think we're gonna find out what the real numbers are. When it comes down to if they do end up doing the deal with Netflix, because everyone will be tuning in and they don't have to worry about going to a friend's house to watch. Everyone will pay the $20 or the flat fee or whatever, and you just go straight to a flat platform of how many views are they really getting? How big of an attraction are you really? And so we're going to find out. I would still put, if it does go to Netflix, I would still put Alex and Islam and certain fighters at that level of being above John Jones.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure it could change between now and the time they do the Netflix deal. If Poatan gets knocked out, 2 more times, or whatever, loses 2 more fights, I mean, obviously it'll change. If Islam loses, of course it would change. If John Jones beats, Tom Aspinall, does he fight again, or does he linger and, collect more checks? I don't know. But I mean, to take that fight for John Jones, it will say a lot. I know he doesn't need to prove anything else. I think that's why people are kind of lingering about, like, okay, look, you're going to fight or not? If not, then why don't hold the division, just run along, just walk, go your way. And let's just have the belt back, because you're holding us captive in the sport, especially in the heavyweight division. So I like I said, I think that we don't have a star problem. The other thing I want to talk about, we do have a little bit of a star problem, but there's a reason for it. And maybe I'm off. Maybe you can correct me if I'm off. I feel like because the guys that are at the top, the Lions, the Dustins, the Dustin Poiriers, the Justin Gaethjes, they're not fucking walking off quietly into the night. They're like, no, send the young bucks. We got them still. And those guys can't get past them. And even though those guys can't get past Islam, those guys can't get past Dustin and Justin and the other ones that are there in that weight class. They're just Charles Oliveira. They can't get past those guys. And so they're all fighting amongst themselves in the Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler, Gamrot, Dariush area, and they can't get, the people below them can't get past them either. So what you have is the young stars can't get past the old grizzled veterans. So they've been there for so long, 6-7 years. That sprucing up of new people coming in. And I said this yesterday when I was doing a show. I said, when were the moments that the UFC grew the best or grew the most and had the most popularity? Is after the Ultimate Fighter tough finale, number 1. Correct?
Yeah.
That's when they grew the most. Second, I would say, is when they bought Pride. Third, when they had Strikeforce. When all new fighters flooded, Rampage, Vanderlei from Pride, okay, when Shogun, those guys came over. That's
Rampage wasn't from Pride.
Yeah, I know, but
WFA.
Yeah, it kind of was though, John.
It kind of was, but it's WFA.
But so then everyone when they came over from Pride, we got the fighters we always wanted to see, and then there was a little stagnation there for a bit, and then realistically, Strikeforce and their buyout of Strikeforce came at the perfect time.
But I think this is exactly what you're seeing, and you're going to be getting a lot of this. Is it's not the same as when the UFC bought out, and when they bought out Pride, they didn't get what they thought they were going to get. Mm-mm. And one of
Fedor.
The main thing they wanted was Fedor. That's the one thing they didn't get. But shit happens. But it's a matter of, like you said, when they did buy out Strikeforce. That gave them a huge infusion of talent that they could match up with the talent that they already had. But I think you're going to start to see, and the PFL has let go of a lot of these guys from Bellator, and they signed Patricio Pitbull. They want to sign Aaron Pico. I don't know what's going to go on with that. There's Yaroslav Amosov is out there, and they should sign him right away. You're talking about a guy who's 28-1 now, mm-hmm. and the guy is phenomenal. There's tape of him working out at Tiger Muay Thai with Chimaev there, wrestling, and taking Chimaev down and stuff. And that's the kind of guy he is. He is that good. And he could go into the 170-pound weight class right now in the UFC, and he could win, just about every one of those. You get into the top ones, obviously, Kamaru Usman is, has the ability. He's getting a little older. I love Kamaru, but, getting a little older. Leon's there. Bilal's, obviously I got a ton of respect for him. But trust me, Yaroslav Amosov can be there with any of them. And on the right day, maybe they win. On the right day, maybe he wins. But that's the kind of infusion when you can take a guy and put him in the middle of this and say, I can match you up against any of these guys. Let's see what happens. That's exciting. That breathes life into that entire division.
That's exactly where my argument was going, is that you're going to start to see this is a perfect opportunity for the UFC to start infusing other talent in from another organization that they let go. And I did an interview with MMA Junkie the other day, and I said, if they don't get their shit together, all the fighters they're going to lose are going to basically make the UFC take another jump, because you're going to start inserting the ones that you want into the division that's going to spark that division and get people talking. If you go, like I said, by the history of the sport, when Pride was bought by the UFC, they had to insert a fighters and it blew up even more. We got to see the Vanderlei versus Chuck. We got to see, these fighters fight Shogun versus
Hua versus Forrest Griffin when he came.
Exactly. Like you got to see these fights. And so then when Strikeforce came, okay, how good was Luke Rockhold? Like me coming in to fight Nate. Like you had guys, DC coming in and fighting at 205 at first, and then going to heavyweight. Like it just was a mix-up.
Dude, he fought
heavyweight first against Roy Nelson and Frank Mir.
Roy Nelson and Frank Mir, that's right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like there was guys though that it helped and it grew the sport even more at that moment. And right now is another moment where it's a little bit of a drag right now. Everyone's like, okay, look, the fights are not all like great. Not every show's good. It's getting watered down. They're top heavy. Dana said it would never be a top heavy card. But right now they're lacking something that really brings more excitement into the UFC. And this is another reason why you need other promotions. So there could always be talk of, well, their champion's pretty damn good. What if he went to the UFC? And the UFC eventually will end up with that champion probably, later on down the road or maybe in its prime, whatever it is.
They're the top
Think about also two other guys. Like Eddie Alvarez came over from Bellator. Chandler came over from Bellator. But Eddie came in later in his career and had inserted, but he still became champion. But it was such a crazy thing, right? Like he came over and it just inserted more energy into the lightweight division.
Well, you can even say that. Look, Chandler came over. He was 35.
Yeah,
that's up there. And he's been there for what, 3 years, 4 years. He's 38, 39 years of age now. He did what he was brought in to do. He injected life into that lightweight division that had, like you said, the people that, they were sitting at the top, but I can take Michael Chandler and I can put him against those guys. And that's what they did. Look, they brought him in, they put him against Dan Hooker first. Okay. He got rid of Dan Hooker fast. All right. Not saying that's, was an easy thing to do, but he did that well. Then right away, he was in the fight for the championship with Charles Oliveira, and he almost won that damn thing. And so you look and you go, that's what just one fighter who's got skill that you bring in that you can put in the middle of that group of killers and they can hold their own. It infuses everything in that division with life.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that it's not a lack of star power. I just think that they need an injection of something that gets these other fighters motivated. Because right now they're comfortable with all the guys that are in their weight class. Okay, look, they're already plotting out who's going to be next. When Chandler came in, they all got pissed off. They're like, why is this guy getting this?
I'm going to give you, for instance, let's say, because Sean Shelby definitely wants him, and Dana has already talked about it. Let's say Aaron Pico is signed by the UFC. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he's going to go to 145. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at their top 15 there. And you say, okay, you're going to put him in the top 15 matchups. Who doesn't he match up with?
The guy that certain guys I would probably keep him away from.
Go ahead.
Yair. Probably just Yair. I would say Yair at 145. Maybe a Josh Emmett. Just the big punching power, the anti-wrestling. I mean, yeah, I mean, you say that, but I mean, like,
not now.
I mean, but look, when I get in there, I the guys that I want to see him fight, right off the bat, I want to see him fight Danny Ige.
Oh.
And I know they won't because they're both managed by Ali. But then why not have him go one step up and go Calvin Kattar? Perfect matchup. Bryce Mitchell. You're not taking him down. You know, I mean, he may, you know, like there might be a little bit of
he'll take you down.
Yeah, he'll take you down, but there'll be some wrestling in there. I don't think Zalal is big enough, like in terms of like I don't think he can control. Pico gets his hands on him. One thing with Pico is it's not just the anti-wrestling. He's gotten so good now with the top pressure and the ground and pound.
That's right.
His ground and pound is phenomenal. You know, the thing that scares me about Pico is just how will he handle guys that are really good kickers? And guys like Yair, whether it's the push kick up the middle because he keeps a wider defensive posture with his boxing. He keeps a wider posture. The kicks can come up the middle. The push kick up to the face. He's not a tall guy, so getting it there. Knees, you know, up the middle as well. Guys like Yair have good knees. Guys that can throw the knee up the middle. It kind of gives me a little bit of a scare. Lerone Murphy, you know, in terms of his movement and his athleticism, will give him some problems. I think in the beginning until Pico's able to try to figure him out. But you know, look, fights that I'd like to see. I'd like to see him fight Evolov.
Yeah, love to see.
You know, that'd be a great fight. And
I would love to see Evolov working for takedowns on him.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be beautiful.
You know, there's just guys like there's guys there that are dangerous. You know, Pico just still, I still care for the kid. So
but
there's a lot of
you could throw him in the middle of that division, and I could match him up with anybody on there and go, yeah, he's got a chance of winning that fight.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
There you go. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing with Patricio is that he won't turn down anyone. So when Yair said he'd take the fight, I'm like, that's if you could have picked. If I said who's the worst fight for him, it would have been Yair Rodriguez.
Sure,
and that's who they gave him.
Yeah,
and I'm like, fuck,
that's normal.
No, I know that is normal for the UFC to do. But look, I'm going to go back to the beginning of all this. Is what we need to do is the guys that are leaving the PFL, look for them to get injected into the UFC, and that'll start to change. I guess the media news on how people perceive the UFC being boring. I don't think it is. It's going to inject new life into the weight classes, new life into the UFC. Now they don't need to sign them all, but they will take some. And when they do, you're going to see that there's that injection of life into the weight classes and how the media talks about them. You know, right now everyone's talking just trash, or we're getting top heavy cards. You know, the fights are lackluster. These pay-per-view fights, as the card after the pay-per-views, they suck. Bottom line is the cards, they're good, but like we gave the breakdown on why they do the way they do after the pay-per-view cards. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, how many fighters leave the UFC. I do know that the UFC and PFL were talking in terms of some trades. There was a little bit of hint in terms of some trades, and we'll see if those actually eventually go through. I know one or two were already rejected from both sides. You know, they had fighters they wanted, and which I actually thought they should have made the trade in one of the cases, but I mean, yeah, it is what it is. But I'm hoping that they start to do more trades amongst organizations. That'd be nice. All right. One last thing there, George.
All right. Well, according to Andy Hickey MMA and Verdict MMA, Robbie Lawler has submitted a drug test for the UFC this week. Do you think there's any fire to this smoke?
I don't. My thoughts are this. I think if he is getting the itch a little bit, he doesn't want to wait to get the fight. If I submit now and I just continue on for 6 months, I leave myself in the testing pool. And if I get the itch, we all know that Dana loves him. You know, the UFC loves him. Dana loves him. Dana's loved him forever, even when he was with them the first time. He will jump through hoops.
Even when he hated him.
Yeah, even when he hated him, when he was winning other organizations, he's like, fuck, I wish I had Robbie back, right? But the bottom line is that Dana will do anything for him. So if he says, hey, I want one more fight, he'll honor the wish. He would love to, but you got to go through the testing pool first. So he's just keeping it, I think, on a leash. I don't think he's too eager to get in there, but if he does get that itch, he's helping coach now. He's cornering a lot of fighters. He's probably holding a little bit more. He's probably getting some work in with the wrestling, defending wrestling, and he's staying busy. And he's like, I'm kind of already in shape, kind of, feeling good. My only concern is that if you do take one more fight, you're never going to replicate what you just did on your retirement fight. That was so phenomenal and how it all happened. And it was absolutely amazing. And I hate to see him have to try to relive that and do it again. And it won't be the same. It won't be the same. So, but look, I'm a huge Robbie Lawler fan. I got to be honest, hands down, one of my favorite fighters ever. And I've been watching him fight since he was 19 years old. So he's one of my hands down favorite fighters and one of the greatest guys that walks the face of the earth. So whatever he decides to do, I back 100%, but it will be hard to say like, hey, you finished your career on such a high note. I wanted it to stay that way.
I'm going to ask you a simple question here. Mm-hmm. Name me the fighters besides George St. Pierre, Demetrius Johnson, and Robbie Lawler that walked out when they should have.
Habib.
Okay. I gave it to you.
You didn't say Habib.
No, you're right.
Oh.
I didn't say it.
Uh-huh.
I can't think of another. Now I can say guys that, people don't remember, like Phil Miller, who was 16-0 when he decided to leave. Okay. But
Brian Stan.
No, went out on a loss.
No, but he went out because he just it was like, this isn't for me anymore.
That's right. He went out on a loss though.
Yeah, but John, that doesn't mean that you just walk. That doesn't mean that it was going bad for him. He could have made a run for a title.
Look at Brian Stan could do whatever he wants at any time because Brian Stan had the background and the leadership qualities and stuff to be able to do that. But when you're looking, you're saying not many fighters go out on a win the right way and say enough is enough. It just doesn't happen that often.
So is your question only based on going out on a win, or is your question going out when they wanted to go out? Your question originally was like going out when they wanted to go out.
No. Going out the right way.
That is, like going out the right way is not taking a ton of brain damage and going off and doing what you want to do. Brian Stan fucking did that. He went out when he wanted to go out. He's like, look, this just isn't for me anymore. Like
you saw his last fight, right?
Who was his last fight?
Vanderlei.
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay. He went out there and just slung it out.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
He went out how he wanted to go out.
But it was not the ending that you want because he got damaged.
But he still went out the way he wanted to go out. He probably in his mind knew that was his last fight. He's like, fuck it, I'm going to leave it all out there.
He might have.
And he went out on the way he wanted to go out. And when it didn't go his way, he moved on with his life. That's the way you want to go out. Like, I'm sorry, but if you think Robbie Lawler would have went out any differently? He knew that was his last fight. Had that fight went longer, Robbie would have fucking went down like Brian Stan. Had that fight been like, that's the way Robbie has been.
I'm not saying as far as the effort in what you do in that last fight, giving it all. I'm just saying it's very nice when you see a fighter like Habib take on a quality fighter in Justin Gaethje, keep his championship, get the win, and then say, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's nice when you see George St. Pierre. He didn't get that quality win. It was a win, but it was disputed at the end with Johnny Hendricks. But okay, he got the win. He walks away. Okay. Then he goes with Michael Bisping.
He came
back and he fights Michael Bisping, gets a beautiful win and walks away. It's beautiful. All right. And that's what I'm saying is those are the ones that, they're few and far between.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Lost out on you. Are you gone? Oh, he went out. Look at him.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. Do you understand what I'm saying, George? It's hard to get things through Josh's head, but you got to figure out not many fighters go out on top.
Yeah. What about a Brock Lesnar? Steroid scandal, lawsuit.
Yeah. Made a lot of money.
Yeah, there you go.
God bless him. Yeah. And Mark Hunt's still trying to get that one back. He's still in court over that one.
I hope Mark Hunt does bare knuckle.
He is. He's going to fight Rothwell.
Is it confirmed? I thought it was just rumors.
I heard that it's pretty well going to happen.
Nice.
So
nice.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with that one, because man, that dude is. I always said I thought Ben Rothwell was tailor made for bare knuckle. He's a big walking zombie that can take a lot of shots and he hits hard. But Mark Hunt is another version. It's just so that would be a great fight.
I saw something where he blamed his fatigue in the Stipe fight to rehydrating with chocolate milk. Do you think that's possible?
No. All right. I think it's time for us to get off of this thing. What do you think, George?
All right, let's wrap it up with a cute little bow.
Everyone out there, do me a favor. Try LMNT. It is a fantastic drink. I use it all the time. Healthy for you, gives you sodium, which you need, gives you magnesium, and gives you potassium. It is an incredible mixture that does taste good. You can get it in powder form that you can put in plain water, or they do have the cans like I drink, which are fantastic. Do that. Also, we continued our partnership with OnlyFans. They've been fantastic with all kinds of combat sport athletes. I know what you're thinking when it comes to OnlyFans, and that, oh, that's where girls are at. And yes, they are. But if you do not look at those things, they're not going to come up. They don't have an algorithm that pulls those things towards you. They will pull the things towards what you look at. So if you're looking at combat sports, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get people like Demetrius Johnson and Chris Cyborg and all these different people that are out there, Stipe Miocic, Michael Venom Page, a bunch of them. So go out to OnlyFans and you can ask questions of your favorite athlete, favorite fighter, ask them questions and see that you can actually get them to respond to you. Also, BetUS, if you want good odds, look for BetUS, and they represent all the sports very well. And that's what's important, is that combat sports, being MMA, is the one that's important to us. So my man, Double G, you have a good night. I hope you get some good sleep there, mister. And Josh, we've killed. He's gone. No more Josh Thompson. We have taken care of him, executed for the moment, at least for about 2 more minutes. For everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you.